Good afternoon. It is about 2:30 p.m. on Saturday the 30th of January 2021, and what you just saw I recorded just before this video about 30 minutes ago out through my office window here in Auckland as people walked through Auckland claiming COVID-19 is a hoax. Yes, we have idiots here in New Zealand as well. Luckily in a city of 1.5 million people, there, as you can see, a very small number of them are idiots. My name is Aaron Hunt, I'm a partner here at Stace Hammond. I head up the Migration Partners team. As always, this video is not taken as being legal advice. It's not legal advice. If you want legal advice, definitely come and talk to us, engage us to provide you that advice. This is just our comments on immigration in New Zealand. If you want to get hold of us, we can get in touch with us at visa@shlaw.co.nz. Also wanted to mention that yesterday the new Stace Hammond website finally went live. If you go to shlaw.co.nz, you can see what I've been spending my last few months on. It's been 2 weeks since the last video. Not much has happened in those 2 weeks. That's why there hasn't been a video. There have been a few things we wanted to comment on. If you do find these commentary videos and the videos we create for you useful, please click that like button and remember to subscribe to be notified about new videos. We do expect there to be more videos as we go forward, as Parliament gets back into session in a few weeks' time, and we'll start seeing things moving. It's worth mentioning, as I know many of you will ask, that there is no changes to visa policies at all since the 1,000 student announcement a couple of weeks ago. Now, in relation to that, we are still waiting for the actual rules. We do expect the border issues we're having right now with people getting out of managed isolation with COVID-19 will be slowing things down, and the plans for students to start arriving in April is completely out the window. MIQ is now fully booked through to the end of May, so I think the government has gone a bit too fast perhaps with that announcement without realising actually how they were going to do it, and we're still waiting for the Ministry of Education to provide details as to how they're going to pick which 1,000 students beyond the sort of broad brush information they've given us so far. We do want to cover a couple of things though. So first item we wanted to cover was an error that Immigration New Zealand made in an email which was only just discovered recently. Now the background is that on 23rd of December 2020 Immigration New Zealand sent out a lot of emails. My inbox was flooded with emails. Now amongst those were emails to the partners of work visa holders informing them that they were eligible for a 6-month visa extension. It was only certain those who had visas expiring in certain periods and had certain visa types. However, the extension wasn't available to all partners of work visa holders, only partners of certain work visa types who had expiring visas, mostly essential skills work visas. There were some work to residence visas, but not all of them, and a few rarer visa types. However, many people were told that they would be getting an extension when they actually weren't, because they didn't fit into the criteria to get an extension. Now on 22nd of January 2021, so just over a week ago, Immigration New Zealand emailed to let us know of the error. And quickly we saw one lawyer putting his name in the paper, being interviewed for the paper, complaining about the error. You know, it certainly was a big error. It was a massive mistake. And if someone was impacted by it, by perhaps not getting a visa because they thought they were getting an extension, we believe it would give them pretty good grounds for what we call a Section 61 application, which is an application for a visa where you're in New Zealand unlawfully. But so we saw the response coming out from the advisors and lawyers, and there's one thing that really confused us. Now, we received hundreds of emails that day from immigration about changes to visa conditions. We then went and checked our client, check the emails, sent them to our client to provide them with the information about their visa. And in doing so, the process was we'd get the next email, check through it, confirm the details, and forward it to the client, and perhaps add some notes more directly about them. You know, your visa now expires on this date rather than this date. Perhaps other notes about other applications they're doing. Perhaps if they've got a skilled migrant application to say, by the way, your SMC is now at this point in the queue, or we expect it to be this sort of situation. Just actually adding more information to the email there and checking the details of the email itself. Now, none of our clients were actually affected by this error by chance, or perhaps the type of clients we deal with. All of our clients who got this extension were actually eligible for it. So when we went through and checked the emails, there was nothing that seemed out of place because it was what they were supposed to be getting. So we didn't notice anything wrong, because I think if we'd had an error of this type coming through our box, we'd have noticed it. Either that day they came through or the next day, because there's a lot to process, and we would have gone, this isn't right, and we would have sort of questioned it. But for those lawyers or advisors who did get emails with the errors in them, why didn't they notice? We think there's about 4,500 people who were given this email in error, who were told you have an extension coming, but actually weren't eligible for it. Now, in that number of 4,500, there must have been some in there that had representation from lawyers or advisors. Yet we didn't see any mention of this error anywhere at any time up until Immigration New Zealand notified us of the change. As you'll see in our past videos, if there's an error and we see an error or an issue, we would raise it, because we think that people should know the issue exists. And we could have questioned, did these lawyers and advisors not notice, before they're too close to Christmas to bother checking these details before they forward them to their clients. That is their job, to check these details and to give advice. So we're sort of wondering as to what went on there. We're sure, like us, many of them didn't get the error email, because we got hundreds of emails and none of them had this one in there. So it could just be that perhaps these were just people who didn't have advisors, but it just seems unusual. And did Immigration New Zealand not realise earlier? Now, we can't believe that 4,500 people received this error, and that none of those 4,500 people sort of questioned it themselves. None of them said, hey, that's not me, I'm not that type of visa, my partner's on that kind of visa, and that none of them questioned it. It just seems strange that this large group wouldn't have noticed. Now, most of our customers take a real interest in the process, the immigration process, as they want to know what is happening and what happens next and what they can expect. And we encourage that. We do our best to keep them informed as to how it works, even down to doing videos about what the process we're actually going through, so they can see everything that we're doing. And I don't think that our customers are unique. I think talking to people online and seeing how people do these applications, we think that most of you will have an interest, where you're watching this video, clearly you have an interest in the process and how these things work, and that none of those people noticed the error. And that Immigration New Zealand wasn't made aware until the 22nd of January. This is a 1 month period, and at some point in there, someone at Immigration New Zealand must have known. So it just seems strange that it took a month to be notified of this, or anyone actually noticing it. Either way, this was a sloppy error that shouldn't have occurred and shouldn't have taken a month to fix. Immigration New Zealand's email put it down to an administrative error, which just seems to be too dismissive to what is a fundamentally huge mistake. It hasn't impacted our clients, but if it impacted you, please let us know. Next thing I want to talk about is processing times. Now, we've had an update from Immigration New Zealand on the processing times for border exceptions. Now, until now, INZ have been trying to handle all the exceptions of interest for border exceptions within two working days. That was sort of their sort of ballpark. They were saying 2 working days. However, some are easier than others, so now they've changed the time frame, and I hope that applicants will be better informed and won't panic if they don't get a response within 2 days. I see a lot of guys in the forums saying, how long does it take, how long should we expect a response from? And if they don't get it within 2 days, they do sometimes panic that it's been forgotten or missed, or there's an error, or there's a problem somewhere. So this is basically just saying from Immigration New Zealand, don't panic. They're just going to sort of just modify the time frames a little bit, so that people get a better idea as to how these things are going to go. Now, the new default time frame will be 5 working days, and 2 weeks for other critical worker EOIs, because they're a much longer, different process. It doesn't mean it's going to take 5 working days. It just means that that's going to be what people should expect as the sort of the outer edge of it. In reality, those applying as family or partners are still looking at about 2 working days. Humanitarian are looking at about 3 working days. Those applying who are usually ordinary resident in New Zealand and applying to come back to the country on work visas on that basis will take longer, as they are more complicated. But yeah, it just means that if it's not takes more than 2 working days, don't panic. There's sort of giving them a bit more time. They're getting a lot of applications through, and they're all being handled out in Henderson, who are a great team at Henderson. And finally, as a personal comment from myself about the decision to grant the Wiggles visas and priority allocation to MIQ. Now, for those of you who know the CPBV process, I did the video of it 2 weeks ago of how the process works. The Wiggles received invitations to apply just before Christmas. They did the EOI before Christmas, got the ITA, came through just before Christmas. Now, about a month later, they had submitted about half of the applications at sort of around the 1 month point. They didn't do it straight away, they did it about when the ITA is about to expire, and said that they didn't bother to do the rest at that point. They then seem to have gotten a National Party MP involved to petition on their behalf, and that as of yesterday, despite not bothering to apply in time and showing an absolute arrogance to the proper procedure, the government granted the visas and gave them space in MIQ in March, when it's currently booked out till the end of May. And it's worth pointing out that that space being granted is the space that's kept aside for contingencies. So if there was an outbreak, that's that space they hold aside for those who caught an outbreak. So we've got to hope that there's no outbreak in March, because there's a few less spots available for that. Now we do understand that New Zealand wants to have entertainers appearing during this time. We don't want to say we're having a great time in New Zealand. We can go out and party, but nobody can come here and entertain. There is some allowance there. I understand that. But we're just disgusted by the involvement of the National Party MP and the government's granting of the visas when the applications had not been made in time. They're looking to come into the country, in 2 months' time or 6 weeks' time, and they applied a month ago. They booked these shows months and months and months ago and should have applied for visas back then. We see so many people out there who are working hard to try and jump through the hoops, people trying to follow the rules, and the Wiggles who didn't care enough to bother applying in time got special treatment from an MP who admits his children are fans. And he didn't even bother to comment on their failure to follow the rules. It really did disgust me when I saw it that morning. Now we are working on something else around this, looking for more information into it, looking into the procedures that were taken to grant this border exception and these allowances. And we'll come back to that later, possibly in another format rather than through YouTube. But just wanted to do a few little comments now about how just absolutely annoyed we are, especially with our clients we talk to who can't get across the border, but it seems that if you're a kids entertainer, that's no problem. But for now, that's going to just end my little rant there, and the end of this video. We've sort of covered everything what we wanted to cover. As I said, it's been a quiet few weeks. But we think that things are going to be changing. Things are going to get more hectic with the vaccinations coming at some point. We're not sure where. I think the government's sure of when either. And just issues everywhere, it seems. We are still living in a fantastic country that has done a fantastic job. I put that down to all of those people in the country, not so much the government anymore. But we'll see how things go in the next few weeks, and we'll let you know as things change. But for now, that is us for today. Going to go and spend the afternoon with my partner. Have a great day. Kia kaha, stay safe, and back to you soon.